The morning of Hope and Liam's wedding was drenched in light that felt too perfect to last. It was one of those Los Angeles mornings where the sky seemed polished, the air just warm enough to promise beauty, not heat. The venue, a private garden estate perched on the rolling hills above Malibu, was overflowing with flowers, white and gold, their fragrance mingling with the salty whisper of the ocean below. Photographers were already setting up near the archway draped in silk, while guests began to arrive, each of them rehearsing their smiles for what the tabloids were already calling the reunion of the year. Hope Logan, radiant and composed, had chosen simplicity for her second chance at love. Liam Spencer, sharp in his tailored suit, seemed determined to prove to the world, and perhaps to himself, that some stories could end better the second time around. But under that golden glow, something darker pulsed, invisible yet palpable. The wedding was not merely a celebration, it was a test. A reckoning wrapped in vows and roses. Everyone who mattered in this story, the Forresters, the Logans, the Spencers, had gathered under one roof, bound by old wounds and fragile truces. It was the kind of day that Sheila Carter lived for. Sheila had watched the preparations from afar, her presence known only to a few who wished it weren't. The years had carved shadows into her face, but her eyes still gleamed with that unnerving blend of brilliance and madness. She didn't need chaos to destroy people anymore. Not when truth, in the right hands, could wound more deeply than any bullet. She had something small, simple, but explosive, a truth hidden in plain sight, one thread that, if pulled, could unravel everything these families had built. As she sat in her car overlooking the estate, she turned the small USB drive between her fingers. On it lay evidence, recordings, documents, blood tests, proof that one of the most whispered rumors in the fashion world was true. Luna Nozawa was not who she claimed to be. And the man standing at the altar today, the one promising loyalty and family, had been complicit in burying that truth years ago. Liam Spencer's greatest sin was not infidelity, it was silence. Inside the bridal suite, Hope stood before the mirror, her reflection almost foreign to her. The lace gown fit perfectly, every stitch a symbol of renewal, but her eyes told a different story. Beneath the calm, there was fear, not of the wedding itself, but of what might come after. The Spencer men had a pattern. She had seen it, lived it. Love that burned bright, then turned cold. She wanted to believe Liam had changed. She wanted to believe that this ceremony would finally silence the ghosts of betrayal. Yet part of her, that untrusting whisper that sounded too much like her mother Brooke, wondered if she was walking not into a marriage, but into a trap set by fate. Downstairs, the guests mingled, Steffi and Finn standing together like a photograph of uneasy civility, Ridge and Brooke exchanging the kind of polite distance that comes from too many second chances, Wyatt laughing too loudly to disguise his discomfort. In the corner, Will Spencer, the young man now old enough to carry his father's secrets, stood alone, checking his phone. His relationship with Luna had been the quiet scandal of the year, the designer's protégé and the Spencer heir, the golden couple who had burned out before anyone could name the reason. Only a handful of people knew that Luna had disappeared after that breakup, vanishing from Forrester Creations under mysterious circumstances. But Sheila knew. She knew that Luna's disappearance had been orchestrated, that Will had been involved in something far darker than heartbreak. And she knew that what connected them was not just romance, but blood. As the ceremony began, Sheila made her move. She entered the estate unnoticed, disguised among the catering staff, her hair pinned back, her uniform crisp. The drive in her pocket felt like fire. Her timing would be perfect, just after the vows, just when everyone's guard was down. That was when truth struck hardest. The music began. Hope walked down the aisle, her arm linked with Ridge's. The guests rose, cameras flashing like stars. Liam's eyes found hers, and for a moment, the world seemed still. He smiled, gentle, steady, convincing. For all his faults, Liam loved her in his own complicated way. He always had. But love, Sheila thought as she watched from the back, was never enough to survive the truth. When the officiant asked if anyone had reason to object, the pause felt longer than usual. A collective breath hung in the air. Then, from the side, a woman's voice cut through the silence. "I do." The guests turned, a ripple of confusion passing through the crowd. Sheila stepped forward, calm and deliberate, her presence like a shadow crossing sunlight. Brooke gasped. Ridge froze. Hope's face drained of color. Security began to move, but Liam raised a hand. "Let her speak," he said, his voice taut with dread. Sheila smiled faintly. "Don't worry," she said softly. "I'm not here to stop the wedding. I'm here to give it context." In her hand, she held up the USB drive. "You see, I've learned something interesting about this family, how truth is always the first casualty of love." Her eyes swept over the crowd, lingering on Will, especially when it comes to the Spencers. Will's jaw tightened. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, but I do," Sheila replied. "And so will everyone else." She gestured to the projector set up for the reception slideshow. One of the staff, confused but too intimidated to protest, connected the USB. The screen behind the altar flickered to life, not with images of Hope and Liam's memories, but with documents, genetic records, email correspondences, hidden messages between Will Spencer and Luna Nozawa. The silence that followed was suffocating. Hope turned to Liam, her voice trembling. "What is this?" Sheila's words filled the air like poison. "It's the truth, Hope. Luna wasn't just another designer under Forrester Creations. She was part of a cover-up, one orchestrated by the Spencers years ago. The DNA results you're seeing prove that Luna is not the daughter of Poppy Nozawa, as everyone believed. She's the biological child of Bill Spencer, and a woman who vanished to protect her from this very family." The crowd erupted in disbelief. Brooke clutched Ridge's arm. Steffi whispered something to Finn, her face pale. Will tried to step forward, but Sheila wasn't done. "And if you think Liam didn't know," she said, turning toward him with a serpent smile, "you're wrong. He found out months ago and helped bury it, because he knew that if the truth came out, the Spencers' empire would fall." Liam's face crumpled. "That's not true," he said, but the conviction in his voice faltered. Hope stared at him, as if seeing a stranger. "Tell me it's a lie," she whispered. He hesitated. And in that hesitation, the truth was confirmed. The ceremony collapsed into chaos. Journalists in disguise rushed to the exits to make their calls. Brooke shouted for security to remove Sheila, but it was too late. The footage was already spreading online, the story already escaping the estate's gilded walls. Hope ripped off her veil, trembling with rage. "You let me stand here, in front of everyone, pretending that this day was about love. But all this time, you were protecting them, your family, your secrets, your lies." Liam tried to reach for her, but she stepped back, her voice cutting like ice. "You don't get to say my name. Not today." By the time Sheila was escorted out, her expression was one of triumph. She didn't need to scream or shoot or set fires. Truth had done her work for her. The aftermath was brutal. The wedding never resumed. Hope vanished from the spotlight, retreating to the Forrester cabin while the press tore the Spencers apart. Bill denied everything, but the documents were too detailed, too damning. Luna resurfaced days later, shaken but defiant, confirming that she had indeed been adopted under false pretenses. The woman she had believed to be her mother was her aunt, her real mother, a former model who disappeared after being blacklisted by the Spencers, had died in obscurity. For Liam, the scandal was more than a fall. It was an implosion. He lost hope, his credibility, and his position in the company. Steffi refused to look at him. Even Wyatt kept his distance. And as for Will, the young heir who had thought himself untouchable, the revelation shattered him completely. He left Los Angeles, leaving behind only silence and unanswered questions. Yet amidst the wreckage, something unexpected happened. Hope began to see the truth not as destruction, but as liberation. She realized that her entire life had been built around men who valued secrets more than sincerity, her father, her lovers, even her mother. For the first time, she stopped trying to fix them. She let the silence stand. Months later, Sheila sat in a small cafe by the coast, reading the news. The Spencers were divided, the Forresters fractured, and yet the world kept spinning. A faint smile touched her lips. People called her a monster, but she had only revealed what they already were. Truth was her weapon, and once unleashed, it didn't need her anymore. Back in Malibu, the garden where the wedding had fallen apart bloomed again. The flowers had regrown, as they always did after storms. Hope returned once more, not as a bride, but as herself. She stood by the sea, the wind tugging at her hair, the horizon wide and endless before her. Somewhere behind her, the echoes of that ruined wedding still lingered, the laughter, the shock, the heartbreak. But she didn't look back. For the first time in her life, Hope Logan was free, not from scandal or loss, but from illusion. And in that fragile, solitary peace, the world seemed to whisper something she had waited years to hear. The truth had finally chosen her side. The days following the ruined wedding descended into a kind of silence that no headline could capture. Los Angeles hummed as always, but inside the Spencer estate, the air felt colder, thinner. Hope had disappeared again, retreating from cameras and calls alike. Forrester Creations distanced itself publicly from every member of the Spencer family, while Bill raged behind closed doors, trying and failing to control a story already spiraling beyond his reach. But the real storm was quieter, rooted not in the press, but in whispers, in fragments of truth that refused to stay buried. Luna's name began reappearing in tabloids a week later, attached to one simple, devastating question. Where is she? The young designer who had once dominated the runway circuit vanished the same night the Spencer scandal broke. At first, the media assumed she was hiding, too humiliated to face the fallout of Sheila's revelations. But as the days passed and no one heard from her, not her assistant, not her lawyer, not even her closest friend Electra, the tone shifted from scandal to suspicion. Finn, who had once considered Luna a patient and a friend, couldn't ignore the unease twisting in his gut. He had seen her days before the wedding, nervous, fragile, holding on to a secret she hadn't been ready to share. When he went through her last messages, he found one draft that had never been sent. It was addressed to Will, but it mentioned Liam. He needs to know before it's too late. That was all it said. Hope refused to believe that Liam had anything to do with Luna's disappearance, but doubt crept in like smoke through a locked door. Her husband had grown quieter, colder, consumed by a tension he couldn't disguise. He claimed exhaustion, grief, frustration, but Hope saw the cracks in his calm. Late at night, she would wake to find him standing outside on the balcony, staring into the darkness as if afraid of what it might reveal. Then the rumors began. A journalist released surveillance photos from the night Luna vanished. Liam's car parked outside the Forrester studio after midnight. The next morning, Luna's phone pinged for the last time near the same location. A week later, a keycard from Spencer Publications was found near the building's loading dock. No one could explain how it got there. Hope confronted Liam quietly one morning, her voice trembling as she asked the question she'd rehearsed for days. Why were you there that night? Liam hesitated too long. I went to talk to her, he finally said. She wanted help. She said she was leaving town and needed money. Why didn't you tell me? Because it didn't matter, he said too quickly. Because nothing happened. But something had happened. Hope could feel it. His eyes gave him away, not guilty, but haunted, as though he were carrying something too heavy for words. When the investigators reopened Luna's file, they found new evidence, medical records that had been sealed by someone high up in the hospital administration. Finn recognized the signature. Luna had been 2 months pregnant. The father's identity wasn't listed, but the timing, the messages, the late-night visits all pointed in one direction. When Hope learned the truth, her world cracked open again. The man she had chosen, twice, had betrayed her in a way that eclipsed every sin before. The affair, the pregnancy, the secrecy, it was too much to rationalize. She didn't confront him this time. Instead, She quietly moved out of their home, leaving behind only her wedding ring and a letter that began with 5 words, "I finally see you clearly." But clarity brought no peace. Weeks later, a car registered to Liam was found abandoned near the coast, its trunk empty, its seats scrubbed clean. Inside the glove compartment was a hospital bracelet, one with Luna's name faintly printed across it, the ink half faded. The police released no statement, but speculation grew unbearable. Was Luna still alive? Had she run? Had someone helped her disappear? Finn, drawn deeper into the investigation, began to see patterns that terrified him. Every trail of evidence seemed to lead back to Liam, but there was always just enough missing to stop the case from closing. Documents vanished, witnesses recanted, and one by one, people who claimed to have seen Luna that night were suddenly unavailable or silent. Someone was orchestrating a cover-up, and doing it well. Meanwhile, Bill's empire began to collapse under public scrutiny. Investors withdrew, advertisers fled, and every journalist in Los Angeles smelled blood. The name Spencer no longer carried power, it carried fear. Within the mansion's walls, Will confronted his father for the first time. "You knew," he said, his voice shaking. "You knew about Liam and Luna. You helped him bury it." Bill's face hardened, but the tremor in his hand betrayed him. "Some things are better left alone," he said quietly. "Some truths destroy everything." Will stepped back. Then maybe they should. It was Will, not the police, who found the final piece of evidence, a voice recording left on Luna's laptop, automatically backed up to the cloud. Her voice was soft, hesitant, as if she were afraid even to speak. "If anything happens to me," she said, "tell them I didn't want to hide anymore. Tell them he promised me the truth. Tell them I wanted our baby to be born free." The audio ended there, but it was enough. Enough to reopen the case. Enough to make Hope realize what she had refused to see. Enough to make the public turn against the Spencers completely. Liam disappeared soon after. No note, no goodbye. His car was found miles away, near the edge of a canyon, but there were no signs of him. Only a single bracelet, delicate and silver, engraved with one word: hope. Some believed he fled out of guilt. Others whispered that he had met the same fate as Luna. But in the quiet corners of Los Angeles, where gossip grows like ivy, another theory took root: that Luna was alive, hiding, waiting for the moment to reclaim everything stolen from her. Hope didn't know what to believe anymore. The love that had once been her compass had turned into fog. But she carried one truth in her heart. Whatever had happened between Liam and Luna, whatever secret they had buried, it would resurface, because secrets always do. Months later, at sunset, Finn received an anonymous envelope at the hospital. Inside was a single ultrasound image, unlabeled but recent. The child was healthy, the date only weeks old. On the back, a handwritten note read, "Tell them I'm not gone. Tell Hope to look east." He turned the photo over in disbelief, feeling the chill of something far bigger than scandal, something that would soon shake both families again. Somewhere, someone was alive, and the truth that had once destroyed them was stirring back to life.